Yeah, Shalom Israel. We are the Isupk out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under commanding General Yohan. We teach the so-called blacks, so-called Hispanics, so-called Native Indians. We are the lost 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. Tonight is our Lashawan Qadash, which is the Hebrew tongue, which is our native tongue. You understand? Our heritage, our customs, and our language has been taken away from us through slavery and through the devices of the so-called white man and all the other nations who continue to oppress us. You understand? And strip away our identity from who we really are. So tonight in this Lashawan Qadash, we're going to get back to our holy tongue, what we call the so-called the ancient Hebrew. So what we're going to do is, just really run back through a few things that we did for the past previous weeks, as well as go into some common words or common phrases, that we would want to use in everyday life. Because as with any language, we had to be able to understand and study language. The language has to be part of our daily lives. So what we're going to do tonight is just going to continue, that reflection of all the information that we have from the previous weeks, as well as, revisit some of the popular ones that we were able to assimilate into our language base, right? Hebrew is a very straightforward language, right? There's no in-between per se, right? But it's something that is very direct, all right? So you're saying, you, come, get, sit. It's very, as they would call us in the ancient times during the Greek and the Romans, barbaric, or it was a barbarian type language, right? It wasn't a sweet sounding language. A good example of that, if you look at most of those old cowboy movies with the Native Indians, how the Native Indians would speak, that is how our language was, because they are also Israelites from the tribe of God. So with that, they spoke a very similar dialect or close dialect to how our original Hebrew ancient language is to be. So now under commanding General Yohan, this nation, we're going to bring back our language, our customs back to our people. So tonight, I'm just going to run back through quickly the basics. And as we know, the basics is the Hebrew alphabet. Right? So running back to the basics of the alphabet, Hebrew is written from the right to the left. English is from left to right. Right? So it's Lashawan, right? Lashawan Qadash. Right? This is how it is sounded or pronounced in English, and it really means holy tongue. Right? Right? It's our holy tongue. Right? It's something that we continue to learn and grow in, because each and every nation have their own language. That is a given. Each race of people have their custom, have their language, have their understanding of who they are as a people. When you strip that away from our people, they become almost nothing, because they have to depend on someone else's language, someone else's structure, right? Which is not theirs. English is not our language. Spanish, French, Germany, these are not our language. These are not our customs. And when we get back our native tongue, our native roots, then we'll be able to have that proper communication and understanding of our own history in the ancient Hebrew, and in dealing with each other, speaking to the language of the Most High, the tongue of angels, as also known as. Right? So, let's get this up a little bit. Right. So, what we're going to do, we're just going to revisit the alphabet back a bit. So, what I have here is like a little cheat sheet, right? So you will be able to see and understand. Hope you are able to see properly on YouTube, right? So I said the Hebrew is written from the right to the left, right? So here you will see it as A, Ba, Ga, Da, Ha, Wa, Za, Ka, Ta, Ya, Ka, La, Ma, Na, Sa, I, Fa, Ta, Za, Kwa, Ra, Sha, Ta. Alright? So this here is the ancient, right? Some of them will call it the Paleo, but it's ancient Hebrew, right? The white one have all kind of language they want to call it, but this is ancient Hebrew. This is our direct dialect. I'll bring it a bit closer, you might be able to see it. So here it is: A, Ba, Ga, Da, Ha, Wa, Za, Ka, Ta, Ya, Ka, La, Ma, Na, Sa, I, Pa, Ta, Za, Kwa, Ra, Sha, Ta. Right? So this is the ancient Hebrew, and this here is what we call the Assyrian, or this is come from the Assyrian captivity of the Babylonians, right? So this is the Assyrian captivity here. Now this language was kind of merged with that. So we have the ancient, and this is the Assyrian, right? So we're going to dive in a little bit more into it as we go down a bit later on. So what we're going to do now is just go into some common words, common phrases that we will continue to use, while we interact with each other. It is simple. So we will have simple phrases. For example, somebody asks me, well, Officer, your car, how are you going? Now, this is in our local tongue. We would say, what is the scene? Right? In our local language. Your car, what is the scene? I would say, well, yeah, I good. Understand? And we understand that being good, it means that, everything is tawab. Now, good in the Hebrew is tawab. Right? So, tawab in the Hebrew, that is good. So, we're going to write. We have good. Right? Good in the ancient Hebrew is tawab. Right? So thawab or tawab is how it's pronounced good in the ancient Hebrew. Now, when you write it in the Hebrew script, it's sa, wa, ba. No, it's not. You have a ta, you have wa, you have ba. No, this is not pronounced Tawaba. It's pronounced Tawab. Now, as we did in previous classes, we have what we call the connectors. Now, these determine if the sound is joined together or if it's pronounced separate. In this case, it's pronounced at the end, it's joined. Right? So these connectors, one is a smiley face and one is a frown face. It's called connectors. So these determine how the word is pronounced. So it's pronounced Tawab, right? Not Tawaba. The connector here joins the Wa and the Ba. So it's Wab, right? So good in the ancient Hebrew is Tawab. So once everything is Tawab, we'll be able to organize. Right? I have to get my little sticker to make that easier. So good in the ancient Hebrew is Tawab. Right? So Tawab is the Ta, the Wa, and the Ba. And if you look back here on the sheet, right? You see how it's, we have the Ta, the Wa, and Ba. Alright? So we see how it's pronounced. So, in our local language or local parlance, as we would say, Yakar, what is he saying? I good, I tawab. Right? So we will say that I tawab is saying good in the ancient Hebrew. Now, most times you would go in those Chinese restaurants or East Indian or wherever, but especially the Chinese establishments. When you go into their groceries or store or parlor, whatever you want to call it, they are speaking their language. We don't have a clue what they are saying. You understand? And because of that, they have that advantage that where they can speak ill of us and we don't even know. They can disrespect us and we don't even know. And that is something that we as a people have to get to understand. But when we have our own language, yeah, this is where we will have that ability to communicate with each other effectively and also not be able to make them understand what we are saying or what we are discussing. They will come in learn English like that because English is like the most common language of the day right now. Just as how Greek was the common language of the time of Christ because they were the superpower of the world at that day. So whoever controls the world controls the language in most cases. So we have here good, which is tawab. Ta-wa-ba. Tawab. Right, so I'll give you the chance to copy that down. So that is the first part. So, seeing that we know that tawab is good or means good in the Hebrew, our next step is putting that together. That would be the basis or the primary word we would use for some of the additional words to be added. So, for instance, you're going to work off in the morning, you're passing on the street. You will tell someone, good morning. So you have your, later you bring it back to work. You're in your own household. You have your wife, you have your kids, you have your parents. So you say here what? Good morning. That's common courtesy. It's basic etiquette. But how do we say it in our native language, in our native tongue? So this is what we're going to do here right now. So we're going to use some of so we will use this here, which is good. So we have good which is Tawab in the Hebrew, and is written here in the ancient script. Now, what I would do as well is write it in the Assyrian, because the so-called Jewish white man, he uses the Assyrian. So some of the text, unless you have a Bible that's translated or information that is translated into the ancient Hebrew, you would have or see in most cases the so-called Assyrian Hebrew. Right? So what I'm going to write here now, I'm going to write the ancient Hebrew, the Assyrian Hebrew. So this is Ta. Then you're going to write the Wa. Right? So, and then we write in the Ba. So this is in the Assyrian. You have Ta, the Wa, and the Ba. Just for the distinction. Now, this is the ancient, and this is the Assyrian. Just so that we be able to distinguish which is which. So now that we have the understanding what Tawab is, which is good in the Hebrew, now we're going to pair that together now with some other words that are very common. So, wake up in the morning. Officer Shah. Wake up in the morning now. You get up, you see your wife, your child, your son, your father, your mother. What is the first thing you would do when you see them in the morning? What you will tell them?
They say good morning.
You will say good morning. Right? So that's basic etiquette. So what you're going to say now in the Hebrew is good morning. So we already know that the word Tawab means good. So what we're going to learn here now is what is morning. So morning in the ancient Hebrew is Bakar. So it's Bakar. Bakwara. Bakwa. So Kwa. Bakwa. Bakwa in the ancient is morning. So in this one here, so we have a Ba, Kwa, and this is supposed to be Ra. Remember, in ancient Hebrew, we have these connectors. So if we write it out here now, we would say the Ba, right, the Kwa, and then we will have Ra. So if you read it every syllable by itself, every letter by itself, it would say Ba, Kwa, change this one. Ba, Kwa, Ra. Now again, it would look funny because again we're writing it from the Hebrew is written from the right to the left. So, looking at it here as is, here with morning is Bakwa. Bakwa. So you have the Ba, the Kwa, and the Ra. But in this case, we have the connectors, which is important. So it's not, you do not pronounce it as Bakwa Ra is Bakwa. Bakwa. So to say good morning in the Hebrew is
Tawab Bakwa.
that's it. Just as it. So you wake up in the morning, you bounce up a nice, beautiful wife. Tawab Bakwa. You understand? And you meet your trend. Tawab Bakwa. Father. Tawab Bakwa. If it's your father, Tawab Bakwa Abba. You understand? So we're seeing where the application is very easy to understand. So in the Hebrew, it's Tawab Bakwa. And with that, you'll be able to add to make like full sentences, as I say. So we know in the Hebrew, Abba means father. So you say Tawab Bakwa Abba, or you would say Tawab Bakwa, you would say mom or mother or child, or which other group of words or nouns or pronouns were added to. But in this case, Tawab Bakwa is good morning in the ancient Hebrew. So you have the ta, the Bakwa. I'm going to write here. See that you understand this now. I'm going to write in the Assyrian. So writing in the Assyrian, we have the ba. We have the ba, have kwa. Right, and then we have the ra, ba kwa ra. So this is the Assyrian. This here is the ancient. So it's to say good morning, it's Tawab Bakwa. So these are the words we're going to be able to practice during the week. Very simple, very basic, very easy to use. So someone says a good morning, you would say Tawab Bakwa. Now, as we're going further, I'm going to add in some little words. You know, some people are a little more romantic. You want to sweet talk the woman and thing in the morning. You understand? Somebody wives want to sweet talk the other one. You understand? So they would say, Tawab Bakwa, other one. You understand?
Okay.
So you see where it's very much applicable in everyday life. So Tawab Bakwa means good morning. So now that we have that one locked, you wake up in the morning, you're going whole day. You understand? You come back down and you now reach home. Bounce in the house, see a rib. What's the first thing you tell a rib?
From work?
You come home from work. You don't come from work, boss open the door. And the boss open the door. What's the first thing you can tell a rib? Tell me.
Well, usually it should be good night, but I know some men go say you cook.
Well, that would be something that they would do. I mean, we know Israelites, we like food. Hands down. Right? But in this case, following a similar pattern, you would say good night or good evening. So this is what we're going to walk into now. So we know Tawab Bakwa is good morning. So what we're going to do now is good evening. Alright, so I'm going to do a little shortcut. I'm going to leave this up here so we know we have good morning. Now we're going to say good evening. And the good evening, don't really have to be, family woman, they could bounce up a nice small on the road. You understand? They're swinging for the swing in the library. See a nice smally. You say good evening. You understand? Introduce yourself. My name is Officer Shah, the Prince. You understand? You drop it like that. Or whoever slang you want to put it on. Right? So that is how, we would. The reason why I do it this way is so that it will be easy to remember. So we know So Tawab is good. Tawab Bakwa is good morning. So we're going to write now good evening. Alright? So good evening is the next word. So evening, I should write it a little higher. So evening,
the bakwa is what? The morning is what again?
yeah, Bakwa, B-A-Q-A-R, Bakwa, right? So that's morning. That's good morning. So Tawab Bakwa, good morning. Good evening. You have this done, right? Or you wanna watch it?
Yeah, you could.
So now that we know what is good morning, what we're gonna do now is learn to say good evening. So you would say good evening. And no doubt, especially here in the Caribbean, we are, for the most part, very well cultured when it comes to our mannerisms. Understand? That is always part of our culture, and it's something that is ingrained in us, even though we are under this oppression. Even though all these other nations have their foot on our necks, you understand? We still have that, that resilience to still be kind to our oppressor, which is really a real messed up thing in your mind. The more oppression we get is like almost the more nice we end up tend to be. The more the white man oppressor, the more you want to save him. Same thing with the East Indian or the Chinese. You understand? It's unless we come out of that mentality, that white supremacist mindset, that Stockholm syndrome, we won't be able to appreciate who we are and appreciate one another. So we have good evening. So evening in the Hebrew is Ira. Right? Ira. So if you see it clearly, is I rather. I rather. So what I will do, I'll pull it up on our good Bible app is the Blue Letter Bible. You will be able to pull it up. You see, some of the words. So if you look in the ancient Hebrew, you still will be able to get the. Yeah, go ahead.
When we right, so saying what is it? No, we're not saying Iraba. We're saying Ira.
No, in this context, you're saying Iraba. Right. So you're saying Tawab Iraba in this context. So I'm gonna write out the Hebrew for it. So we know I, which is the first letter. I is just as the letter I. And it signifies the I itself. So this is the letter for it. Ra, as you know. Ba. So it's Iraba. So Iraba. There are no connectors on this one. And writing the Assyrian for this is I this case, the I, right. We have I, the Ra, and then we have the Ba. I rather. So this is how we say good evening. So we say I to Wab, I rather. Very straightforward. It's a so-called brutish. You come here now, sit. And even when you look at it, how we speak and all as black men, even in this disgusting language called English or Spanish, or whatever it is, we just talk. You will never get a nigga in get to talking Queen's English. You could guarantee that. We just put our own, well, we put our own spin, our own slang. What is this scene by? What one? Jamaican. You understand? What is the hustle? We seen King, our whole vibes. Like for instance, there are a lot of words that so-called English that we put our say. So there are some words that we would usually so-called mispronounce for the English. So like temporary. We say temporarily, you know, we would, or sometime. It's supposed to be sometimes, or some time in the English. Sometimes. You say, what is the scene? It's like, what is the scene is real broken. What's the scene? We say, what is the scene? What going on? What going on in the so-called Jamaican one? So, go ahead.
The next one is like, instead of saying yes, you say yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, so as we were using the first one, you would say, okay, Sha, what is the scene, man? Everything good? You would say, yeah. You know, everything to wab. Everything good. So these are the context that we use in it. And it's very familiar to us. Hebrew is not something that is foreign for a black man. The so-called white man, so-called other nation, they make it seem as if Hebrew is this, you know, outer space type language that only certain white people or sector people can understand. But you can see a common Negro, because this language is ours in the first place. So the spirit in speaking this language is very easy for us. A baby has the most basic understanding of Hebrew. They speak Hebrew of the womb. Ah, ba, ga, da, wa. So babies of a birth speak Hebrew. So just imagine a child, your child, come out of the womb and going into the ancient Hebrew. So you say ah, ba, ga, da, ha, waza, katalaka, tayakala, ma, na, sa, aipa, taza, kwa, rashata. Just imagine that baby. How hard it is for a baby to say God or ah? It's only when we get bastardized by this language that we have here now, it seems difficult, but it's not. Right? So, if we go back to here, we will see good evening is Tawab Iraba. This is the ancient Tawab Iraba. Right? So that's good evening. So we have a lock. Now after the evening pass now, what we have next? So we know how to say good morning. We know how to say good evening. What do we have next?
Good night.
Good night. And that is a stalwart UPK too. Good night.
Yeah.
We're going to see the madness of the white man. So we're going to see now how to say good night in the ancient Hebrew. Very simple. And it's not no rocket science like how our oppressors like to make it look or feel. So what we're going to see now is night. So we're going to see how to say good night in the ancient Hebrew. Right. So all right. So night or good night in the Hebrew is, let me use another. Night in the Hebrew is la, ya. So wab, la ya. The wab, la ya. That is night in the Hebrew. So we say good morning. Tawab Bakwa. Good evening is Tawab Iraba. Good night is Tawab Layab. So La, Ya, La. Or Ya in this case. Because of the connectors. Tawab Layab. Good night. So swing along the road, up in library, see a nice small lady side of the road. What are you going to say? What's the first thing coming out of your mouth?
Tawab, Layal,
Right?
Aquap.
Aquafian? Oh, Aquaf. Good night. So you see how sharp there, yeah? You're going to bust what? You want to roll up the tongue? Right, it? So you're going to say Tawab, Layal, Aquaf. Right, it? She melts. Right, it? Ashini bag. So this is basically how it is. And again, this is our language. It's natural to us. So, good night is Tawab Layal. And as Officer Shah just put it on so smooth, he will say Tawab Layal Akwaf. You understand? So if you go Akwafian, well, you know it's plural. But Akwaf, you know it's sister. Yeah. So, yeah, true. I know, you gotta learn how to say, I want to know my Hebrew. That's the next step. What is it?
Good.
That's the next step. Right, so what we're going to do now is write it in the Assyrian. So in the Assyrian is La, Ya, Layal. So I have it correct. Yep, and that's it. So that's it. So wow, Layal. Good night. So tell me, Officer Barrett. I know you're going to use some of this tonight. Tonight, I know you're going to use it. So we have Tawab Layal. Tawab Layal. So this is just some of the basics, phrases, words that we use in every day so that we can be able to apply here Tawab. So we'll be able to use this. So, Tawab Layal, good night. So that's simple enough. You're good, you want to take it on or that? Yeah, but All right, good. So, we just had good morning, good evening. So, who could tell me what is good morning in the Hebrew?
Good morning. Bakwa.
Baka.
Baka.
Yeah, bakwa.
Bakwa.
That is correct. So, wa bakwa. Are we here? Good night.
Good night is Tawab Layal.
That's right. So, wa layao. I don't know what I did in the last part, Dave. Really, what is the last part? Right, so we have the wab bakwa. Then we have the wab layal. And the next one is good evening. So good evening in the Hebrew is
Tawab Iraba.
Tawab Iraba. Right, so good morning, Tawab Bakwa. Good evening, Tawab Iraba. Good night, Tawab Layal. Plain and simple. So you don't get it on here right now. So, one of the other most common words that we use in the ancient Hebrew, and as a people just plain old good manners, is when somebody offers you something and you receive it, what do we say?
We say thank you.
That's right. So to say thank you very much. Very common word. Thank you. So, in the crowd, anybody know how to say thank you in ancient Hebrew?
Well, we know you have custom. See it very Tawada.
Tawada? Oh, that's it. That's it right there. So, what? There, that's it. Tawada. So, how we write Tawada in the ancient Hebrew is wa da. It's pronounced Tawada. Tawada is thank you in the ancient Hebrew. Now, to write it, I'm going to show the ancient and the Assyrian. So remember, it's written from right to left. So the tha, wa, da, and we have a pa. Now, putting in the connectors to how the word is pronounced. It's Thawada, not Thawada ha. So, what are you putting in? Right. So, which one are you putting in? Is this joint. So, we have the two connectors. Right? So, one is used to make it separate, and one is used to join. So, this first character is tha.
Join.
So, the tha and the wa joining. So if you're pronouncing it, is it Tawada or Tawada?
Tawada.
Right. So you have the Ta, the Wa, and then we have the Da. But in this case is the H is almost silent. So it's not Tawada Ha, it's Tawada. So this is where the sound is joined. So this is how we have it. It's pronounced Tawada. So, if better to see. It's a bit easier to see. Probably just write it over. So that is thank you. Or we just say thank you. Some people try to talk the so-called white man's English. We just say thank you.
So I can say, right? When we say like when the alphabet, right? So that D, right? D is done da already, right? So that D, so that comes as one. That comes as one
sound.
One sound.
Yeah. In case of Tawara, yeah, well, the da already has that sound, da.
Yeah.
But because of how it's pronounced, is like a da rather than a da. So it's toward da. So that is how the ha or the H
Right.
comes in. So the other half is silent. So the ha, the more get the h. So it's toward da, not toward da. In that context. So that was thank you. In the ancient Hebrew. So we're going to get some more common ones. So we know good morning, good evening, good night. You tell somebody, thank you. So, if we are going, let's say now to ask someone for something. So I will say, Sha, let me get at it. Or what you probably are supposed to approach it.
Can I get some of that, please?
Please. Yeah, that's why I'll decorum.
Yeah.
Or say, can I have that, please? And to say please in the Hebrew is, we just use it right through.
That's all.
Well, I will write it in the Hebrew. I never see if you could do it again. So I'm going to write it in the Hebrew. So, but first of all, you got to pronounce this in. This is like a triangle with a round tail. This is ba. So you have a, ba, ga, da, ha. Right? So this is ba.
Bargain.
Oh. So you have, what is it looking like? Almost looking like. Most cases it's says ba ba. This is qua. So it's ba ba qua.
I think I know the original.
That's it. All the way back, that's a big please. Together. So it's ba ba qua sha. Understand? So ba ba qua sha is please. It's please in the ancient Hebrew. P-L-E. Right, so it's no good. This one says please. Please. So it's Babakosha. So it's pronounced Ba, Kwa, Sha. Babakosha. For some people, it might be a tongue twister, but just simple pronunciation. Take it slow, and then from there, catch it. So it's Babakosha. 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 Please. Babakosha. And put in the connectors. Kwa, Sha. In this case, Kwa, and Sha. Right? Not Sha. Kwa, Sha. So not Sha, Ha in this case. Because you have a Ha in the end. But it's Kwa, Sha. And then the A is silent.
When the upward, they're going to join in.
Yeah. When it's up like this, it shows us a connection between the two. Right? This might come into that way. So that is the connection. Please, Babakosha. Babakosha. In the ancient Hebrew. So say please. So we just learned thank you. The water. Please, Babakosha. The water, Babakosha. Right? So that's it. So take down this. Babakosha. That would lovely. Nice. So, you have good morning, good evening, good night. Thank you. Please. Babakosha. So, we're going to go on to something else that's also common as well. And most of it we say in our greetings. So, you will meet somebody on the way and you will say, yeah man, peace. But maybe you say peace out. So how do we say peace in the ancient Hebrew? Common word, common in English, but in our native tongue,
Shalom.
what's it?
Shalom.
Shalom. That's it, right. When we greet each other, we would say, Shalom. Yahweh Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Barakatah. Right? We say, Lord, we say, peace. Lord, in the name of Christ, bless you. So we'll also go into that on our later date. So, we're going to go into, this is peace. I think I spelled it correct. Peace. Peace. P-E-A-C-E. Right? So that's peace. So, peace in the Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, is shalom. It's not shalom. It's not shalom. All these fake Israelites and everybody and the Christian church and the Muslim mosque and Sai Baba and all of them want to say shalom and all them other crap. It is shalom. Have no O in the ancient Hebrew. I don't know where they get the O from. So, writing it in the Hebrew. So, peace in the Hebrew is shalom. So, you have the Sha, La, and sorry? Yeah, so you have a Sha and La. What's the next one? And Sha, La, is supposed to be a Ma. So this is, well, in this case, it's silent. So there are some letters when they drop to the end of the word or the base word, it's silent. So here it's pronounced shalom. Sha, la, and ma is pronounced shalom because of the connector. So when I say peace, shalom. Right? I hope you all are able to see it properly on the YouTube and on the Facebook. Right, so it's shalom, sha, la, shalom. In this case here, this, I just want just to get the understanding, but it's pronounced in one, shalom. Shalom, not shalom, not shalawam, as those fake groups try to portray. It's shalom. So, you have a few. Let's jump into the next one. And I know my Regent Shah will like it too. I know Barrett gonna use it tonight. So, most times when we see peace, what's the next synonym also that come with peace? Especially when he was in the hippie days. What do you say? Huh? Well, war is like the opposite, but something that is similar to peace. Huh? Peace and? No. That's it. Always talk about peace and love. Let's have peace and love in the church. All are we together as one. Jahaji Bai. What's the next one? This mother sing I forget the madness. This one sing the Trinity the bone like David brother. Not leaving. There's peace and love and unity. No. There's no peace and love and unity in the Bible. The Bible is about war, is about separation in those scriptures. And when you read it, looking at scriptures, it's right in front of you, but you had to search diligently. You will realize it's about segregation, it's about separation, it's about war against the other nations. And bringing the peace amongst ourselves, among the nation of Israel. That's where the peace and the love was coming in. Not peace and love for the other nations. They are going into slavery. Hard bondage. Hard bondage. So all our so-called oppressors now, who feel well in the heaven now, in the kingdom, hard bondage. All them Africans, hard bondage. All them East Indians, hard bondage. All the so-called Chinese, hard bondage. When blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians rule this earth, all they will be under our whip. There's no doubt about it. And when our king, our child, come down here with the chariots, and they will watch us as madmen, they say, well, you're talking about chariots and this conspiracy theorist thing now. When the Most High touched down, and he drenched this place, everybody will have to stay in the home. So, we just had peace, and I love to say peace and love. Let's get together with the police. After they kill us and strangle us to death, let's have love and peace. Let's march together as one. So we're going to have love. But the only love I have is when I have a nice long whip across the back of some slaves. They didn't have no love for us and no mercy when we were being whipped, but they still expect us to love them. So, love in the Hebrew is right. It's pronounced ahab. And I think I will have to write it over. This marker ain't looking so good. So, so this is the ancient. So that is the and the bar. Right, I think that's supposed to be it. No. Ah. Right. So ahab means love. So we just had peace, and now we have love. So to say love is ahab. So all we learn a little earlier tonight, let me meet a small down the road. Now pull up about 7 o'clock. Pull up on this time. What did you first say you're going to say? Mario, tell me.
Aha.
Oh, you want some? You want some? Aha? Good night. Well, let's stick it, but you want some ahab? And you want some love? So you would say Tawada Layal ahab. Understand? So you would say essentially what we just said in Hebrew is Tawab Layal ahab. Good night, my love. Understand? Because we talk a woman. Understand? Tawab Layal ahab. Understand? Or when you want to spit the game.
Might I say the language direct, yeah?
Yeah, it's direct.
Ahab.
You want some ahab, you understand? You want some love, you ain't sticking. That's why you ain't playing. So you want some ahab, which is love. So, this is our language. And we have to understand that this is our culture, this is who we are. And unless we are able to express it as how in its natural state, it's like you're having somebody caged up, locked up in a cell in solitary confinement for 40, 50. Let's imagine 200 years, 300 years in solitary confinement. You will go mad. You will lose the essence of who you really are. And that is what they have done by removing our language from us as a people. Understand? So you would say, how would you say good morning, love? Let's see if we can put it together. Good morning, love. Barriers. See if you can catch it.
Ahab.
Sorry?
Ahab.
So if you say Tawab Ahab, that is good love. But I could say something else. You understand? So if you want to say good morning, love, how would you say?
Tawab ba kwa Ahab.
Right, so you say Tawab Bakwa Ahab. You understand? So and if it's like flow, you say Tawab Bakwa Ahab. Like flow. Tawab Baha Akwa. Tawab Bakwa Ahab. That's how we say good morning, love. Now, if you're saying good evening, love, how would you say that now? Let's see it.
It would be I Rabba.
Now, remember we're saying good evening, love.
Tawab, I Rabba, Ahab.
So we're saying Tawab, Iraba, Aha. So it's smooth. Tawab. Or she's saying Tawab, Iraba, Aha. Understand? Aha, which is love. So the same thing, good night, love. Tawab, Layal, Aha. Understand? You have it love. So, now we have good morning, good evening, good night. We have peace, we have love. We have thank you, we have please. Now, we're going into some more serious stuff. So, we're going to our next juicy one you could use to pull some game on. Understand? So we have love. Why is one of the still together?
Nah,
Good. Why somebody slang would use to pull a female? What would you call a female? So we know, okay, what's up, love? Love is one of you, right? So you say good night, love. What another one you go use?
Good night, princess.
Yeah, good night, princess. Alright, that's a good one.
Good night, gorgeous.
Good night, gorgeous. Alright, well, let's put in some game here now. So, one we could use is good night.
Darling.
Good night, darling. Every local slang now. You see, darling. Good night. You know, darling is our local twang for saying for expressing that young lady. That's our da. No, look at that. You say darling, but it's supposed to be darling. That's how it's spelled. It's spelled darling. The so-called Queen's English. But we just say darling. Like how we just pronounce it. Darling. We're saying darling. But it's darling. But in this case, it's not darling, it's not good. Even though like one of the is a good one. I'll do some more research. See if I can get darling in the evening. So I want to spit some more game. Right? So the word we're gonna use here now is the bash. Right?
Let's see if I mean dancer.
Eh? No? Something sweet, man. What's sweet? If you wanna tell a woman she's sweet, huh? You see how she's real sexy, she's real nice, beautiful. What I can tell you, if she's real sweet, what could you use to describe her as? Tell me. I know that game. I can't prove that. I know that real sweet. So, tell me a word that you would use to describe a sweet young lady. So she walking in the road, sexy, beautiful. So girl, sweet like what? That's right. Sweet like honey. So the bash is honey in the ancient Hebrew. Right? So I know men gonna split game tonight. So the bash. So we had good night, love. Now we have good night.
The bash.
You understand? Good night, honey. So you're saying tawab. So if you're saying good night, honey, so you're saying tawab, layal, tabash. Good night, honey. You understand? So you're splitting our game there. In Hebrew. So, writing this in ancient Hebrew is Da, Ba, and a Sha. But A is not there. Right? Is the Bash. It's not the Basha. It's the Bash. So, the Bash. This is where the connectors come in. And if you're writing it in the Assyrian is it's da. We have the ba. Right. It's da, ba. Right. Da, ba, and sha. Right. This is the ancient. This is the Assyrian. So to say honey in the ancient Hebrew is the bash. Right? So we have the bash. So we have good morning, good evening. We have good night. We have peace, love. We have honey. Now, when I say good morning, good evening, good night, what's the next phrase that sometimes men will say to get a real sweetener? From your gosh, get a good looking. And you like honey in my lips. You understand? What is the next? What is usually the next phrase we will say down here? Very common. Really common. When a man trying to tackle a small so you tackling a smallie, say, girl, you already seen. Sweet like honey. Watching you sweet like honey roasted nuts. You understand? It's sugar coated. All kind of thing you want to do. All kind of thing you want to do. But the most common my brethren will tell us money is you, I really love you. You understand? I will be the same. I love you. In our son. But in the so-called English, you will say, I love you. So what we're going to learn here now is how to say I love you in the ancient Hebrew. So we know what is peace, we know what is love. So what we want right now is to say I love you. So you know what anybody remember what is love in the Hebrew? Love, we just went through it. What's love in the Hebrew?
Ahab.
Ahab. So, there are Ahab. Right? So, Ahab. Right, so how far we want to cover the first time. Right, so we have Ahab is love. So, this is love. Do you all remember how to say I? No.
I will be the circle with
No. Remember we had some prefixes and suffixes, right? Remember when you went through in the previous classes, where you would see where certain letters represent I, she, he, they. So I, when I was speaking, it was I, right? Well, in this case, to say I love, you would say I have. Understand? So you say I love. In this case here. Let me give it a little more space. So we have love. We have I love. So I love is a hub. So we have I love, which is a hub. Who can remember what you is in the ancient? We had prefixes, suffixes. We had some similar words. Okay, that was able to right? Those words, what we went through with a couple weeks ago. Right? So, you in the ancient is how do you have to pronounce it? Afar. Actually, it has a H. Afar. So we say Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh, Barak, Atah. Lord, in the name of Christ, bless you. Right? So, to say I love you is Ahab Atha. Ahab Atha. So, don't say me Smalley. Smalley, I really love you. Family, I love your body. In our ancient tongue, we would say Ahab Atha. So, Ahab Atha. You understand? But you put it in your slang, the context. Down here, Trini? Yeah, telling you, family, I really love you. I love your body. That's what we would say down here. We love your good and we love your bad. So you had that whole metaphor, that whole context. And that's how the Bible is written. If you tell somebody of the other nation who don't understand our slang and our language, I love your body, they will think, well, something off. They will need love, good. If you understand what I mean. But because they don't understand our slang, we say, boy, that thing real fresh, boy. Fresh for us means something new, something good looking. But they might think fresh as something that is fishy. You understand? They don't know. They don't understand our language. And for them, they're trying to put their spin or their understanding of what we are saying. That is where the confusion comes in. That is where Christianity comes in and messes up. Same thing like when you have John 3:16, for God so loved the world they don't understand that the world that they're talking about is not the whole world. You understand? World means age of society. Because they don't understand the context problems. So, now that we know how to say I love you, tell me, we just learned how word earlier on. So let me see how we can apply that now. Let me make a little space. Right over that word. Right over the sentence. All the Hebrews. Oh God. So I love you. What do you have to put on here? So let me hear a little. Tell me. Now let's put in a Hebrew now. So we say I love you, honey. Now remember we just learned what was honey a while ago. So I'm going to take this off and rewrite it. So let's see. All the Hebrew scholars here now. Spitting game tonight. Now remember Hebrew is written from right to left. So how are we going to pronounce I love you honey in Hebrew? Now we just learned what is I love you. So I love you is ahab. So this is I love. Atah. Qadash. And I got you there. I said it. She inside the bag. She inside the bag. She fall in the trap. Right? She fall in his own now. So, Michi, bounce up your rib, small your tackling. What exactly what you're going to tell her is?
Qadash.
So a little faster.
Qadash.
Is it? When you're swagging that, and I did it, I would look. Game over. Right, so writing this in the Hebrew, either from left to right, sorry, from right to left. So we say ahab. Atah. Ahab, Atah, Qadash. So is ahab, Atah, Qadash. So we have ahab, Atah, Qadash. I love you, honey. Now this could be used on your rib. Some men rib go on using this right shoe. So you females, feel free. Understand? Tell the other one that you love him. Understand? Say I love you, honey. So you're saying ahab atah Qadash, or ahab atah one. Understand? Or you can make it more, even use it to extend it to your family. Ahab atah Abba. Understand? So the use of it, you can see how common you can use it to apply every day to your loved ones. Alright? Not just your rib or your husband, etc. So you're seeing where it can be used. So the girl can take it down. I'll practice on YouTube tonight. Let me meet you now on Facebook, WhatsApp. Here we are the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. We are not affiliated with any organization, any religious group. We have been teaching this truth since 1969. That the so-called blacks, so-called Hispanics, so-called Native Indians, that we are the lost 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. It's time for us to come back to our heritage, our language, our customs, and we're going to be able to really come back together. But we see how the world hates us. All blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. Now is the time to come together. So we're just going to do a little bit, probably do, let's see what the time. See now we're almost right up on the time. I think I'll probably stop there for tonight. And with that, I'll pass the class to Priest and Officer Bariaf.
Security announcements. We are the ISUPK out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Yohana. New rules for brothers and sisters. When a new brother or a sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to shed themselves of the world. After 6 months, if a brother or a sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or a sister. There is another 6 months in which a brother or sister will court each other. After this 6-month period, the brother or sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment, you can find this in Numbers 18 and 21 and Malachi 3, 8 to 10. Means tenth in Hebrew and is pronounced Mayai Shara. 10% of every penny, of every increase the Lord gives you, give to the Treasury Department or teacher. Priest fund. Free will offering for priests, not mandatory. Whatsoever amount you would like to give, upcoming holy convocations, remind, aquatium, and
so like here we have the memorial in blowing at trumpets. Right, I think that's in September. Right?
good. So the memorial, remember the memorial blowing of trumpets in September.
This is pull up the date. Slovakia. Right, so memorial. Oh, I think it's September the 17th. If I'm not mistaken.
September
Right?
the 17th, 2020. Remind Aquatium, Akium and Aquatium to check on social media such as isupk.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and so on for ISUPK events and materials. If a brother wants to be a trooper in the school, then he is to start wearing all black, which includes black boots, light shirts, light pants, light headbands, or scarf. And with that we say ad majum. That we say ad majum. Let's get the teacher one cool to see salute. I imagine Shabbat. I imagine Barak.
Yahweh Hashem Yeshai Barakatah. Yahweh Hashem Yeshai Barakatah.
Yajimata. Class dismissed.